I was told straight to my face that I'd be removed if I let prisoners walk without chains. She barked the order like iron was the only justice left, and the room waited for me to fold. But when I held up the letter with the Red Cross stamp, the one that carried a son's hymn across an ocean, her voice broke before the crowd. I remember that silence, like frost on the window. Let me take you back. The bell over the diner door trembled as the wind pushed through Main Street. Coffee hissed on the back line. Cups clinked. A radio hummed a tune that had lived in the town longer than anyone could name. Eli Mercer stood where the linoleum met the morning between the window booths and the counter, watching the column of prisoners step into view. Their jackets were plain, their faces wind-burned, and their boots carried the road in gray dust. Why no chains? A man near the pie case barked, voice sharp as cutlery. Easy, Eli said, his tone a warm baritone. Let's keep it orderly. They're our enemies, someone answered from a corner booth. Show some sense. The sense, Eli said, is that we're better when we're steady. A waitress froze with a coffee pot raised. Do I keep pouring or what? Keep pouring, Eli told her. Nobody stops their mourning. Tommy Lee, skinny and bright-eyed, pressed his nose to the window. They look cold, Mr. Eli. They're men walking in winter, Eli said. Same as us. Same, a farmer muttered. Not after what's happened overseas. Sir Eli said we'll keep to the rules we swore to keep. The door sighed open again, and the wind carried in the smell of snow. Outside, the prisoners moved in an even rhythm, flanked by two young guards who kept their rifles at the angle of habit, not threat. Eli stepped closer to the glass, and something caught his eye. A corner of paper tucked in the front pocket of the tall prisoner at the middle of the file. The edge was worn soft by fingers. The man kept his hand close to it, protecting it without touching it. "What's that?" Tommy whispered. "He's got something." "Could be a letter," Eli said. "People carry what matters." "A letter?" The farmer scoffed. From who to who? From a son to a mother, the waitress guessed, refilling a cup. Or the other way round. "Doesn't matter," the man by the pie case said. "What matters is chains." "Why no chains?" he repeated louder this time, daring an answer. "Because we're not that kind of town," Eli said, steady as a mantel clock. "Oh, we're soft now," someone said from the stools. "Soft gets you hurt." "Steady isn't soft," Eli replied. "Steady keeps people standing." The prisoners drew even with the diner window. Breath lifted from their mouths like small ghosts. The tall one glanced in, not defiant, not pleading, just taking measure of the warm light and the red vinyl and the tip jars' scattered coins. Tommy lifted a hand without thinking. The man's eyes followed the motion and then dropped to the letter in his pocket. "Don't wave at them," the farmer hissed. They'll think a child waved," Eli said. "Nothing more, nothing less." "Sir," the waitress said quietly, "do I take the pot outside, offer a refill?" "You'll freeze out there," Eli told her. "We'll keep the door shut." "Then what do we do?" she asked. "Stand and stare." "We keep mannerly," Eli said. "We let them pass." The radio thinned down to a single trumpet line and then swelled again. A spoon rattled in a saucer. Someone laid a nickel by the register, the soft plink carrying farther than it should have. The young guards outside cut glances at the storefronts, their mouths tight with the kind of focus that grows on recruits. They were boys Eli thought wearing duty like a coat one size too big. "Look at them," the man at the pie case said. "Walking free as you please." "They're walking watched," Eli answered. "There's a difference." "Difference, my foot," the farmer said. "My brother didn't get a difference." "I'm sorry about your brother," Eli said. "I truly am." "Then chain them," the farmer snapped. "Make it square." "It won't bring him back," Eli said. "And it won't make us better." "Better," the man echoed. "Better for who?" "For the ones watching us," Eli said. "For the ones we are." Tommy tugged Eli's sleeve. "Do letters cross oceans?" "Mr. Eli?" "They do," Eli said. "Slower than hearts, faster than grudges." "Letters from enemies?" Tommy asked. "Do they get read?" "Most letters get read by someone," Eli said. "That's the way of war." The waitress set down the pot and wiped her hands on her apron. "You think that letter is from home?" "I think a letter is always from home," Eli said, "wherever home is." "Home?" the farmer barked. "Their home bombed our boys." "Sir," Eli said, holding the man's stare. "We're keeping a house here." "A house," he said bitterly. "A house of fools." "A house of rules," Eli said. "That's what keeps the roof on." The column reached the corner by the drugstore and paused for the light, as if any law could matter to men wearing the day like a sentence. One guard lifted his chin to check the crossing. The tall prisoner's hand drifted again toward the letter, a small, helpless gesture. It was nothing, and it was everything. "Because I'm responsible for how this looks," Eli said. "And how it feels. How it feels," he said, scorn dripping. "Feels like we forgot." "We haven't forgotten," Eli said. "We're remembering who we are." The light changed. Boots moved. Breath hung and broke. The column crossed. The window glass fogged for a heartbeat and then cleared, showing only Main Street again, the barbershop pole turning, the diner doorbell settling, and the tip jar shining a dull amber. Tommy leaned closer to the glass. He touched the paper again. "He did?" Eli said. "Some things you don't let go of." "Like anger," the farmer said. "You don't let go of that." "Like dignity," Eli said. "You hold that tighter." The waitress set down the check at the corner booth. "You boys still hungry?" "Hungry for sense," the man muttered. "That's what I'm hungry for," sense, Eli said, "is letting the morning stay a morning." "Morning," he said, "feels like night to me." "Then turn on a light," Eli said. "Start there." The radio caught a brighter chord. Someone laughed, surprised by it, and then looked ashamed of the sound. Eli loosened his shoulders, not quite a sigh. He kept his place between the window and the crowd the way a porch post keeps its place through wind and weather. "Do they come back this way?" Tommy asked. "Do we see them again?" "You'll see them," Eli said. "Work takes a path. So does decency." "Decency for them," the farmer said. "Where was decency for us?" "It's here now," Eli said. "We can choose it or not." "Easy for you to say," the man said. "You're in charge." "Harder for me," Eli answered, "because I'm in charge." The bell rang once more as a latecomer stepped in. He stamped snow from his boots and took off his cap, then froze at the weight in the room. He glanced at Eli. Eli gave a nod that meant sit, eat, breathe, and don't add to the heap. The man sat. The room took a breath with him. Outside, the last of the column cleared the corner. The street looked the way streets look after a parade that nobody clapped for. Eli turned from the window. He touched the counter with his fingertips, grounding himself to formica and coffee rings and the small, ordinary stillness that holds a town together. Tommy stayed by the glass, his reflection thin and pale over Main Street. He swallowed, then leaned so close his breath fogged the pain again. In that little oval of white he could hide and speak and not be seen. He cupped his hands around his mouth and let the question out soft as a secret. Why trust them? The post office smelled faintly of ink and wool. A stove ticked in the corner. The line bent once around the brass rails, hats in hands, parcels tucked under elbows. On the counter a Red Cross clerk sorted envelopes with soft, practiced thumps. Paper rustled like dry leaves. Eli Mercer stepped in behind the prisoners and their escorts. Snow clung to their cuffs. The tall prisoner, the one who guarded his pocket, kept his eyes on the floor. You could hear him breathe, slow and steady, as if he had been taught to breathe that way. Next, the postmaster called without looking up. His glasses rode low, his pencil fastened behind his ear like a small tool. The first guard cleared his throat. "Postage for letters, sir." "Payment goes through the office down the hall," the postmaster said. "Stamped by Red Cross, held for censor, moved along." "Copy," the guard answered. A woman in a dark coat whispered to her neighbor. "They're mailing home." "They're mailing lies," the neighbor said. The stove clicked again. Someone coughed into a handkerchief. The tall prisoner shifted, and the corner of paper lifted in his pocket like a trapped wing. Tommy Lee held the door for a pair of veterans with walking sticks. He looked very solemn about it, like a kid at a funeral. "Morning, sirs," he said. They nodded, then spotted the uniforms in line, and their faces went stone quiet. June Carver stepped out from behind the mail slot wall, her cardigan buttoned crooked and a pencil tucked in her bun. She knew every handwriting in Milltown by scent and slope. Today, new hands had arrived, careful hands that shaped letters like bridges. Sir June said to the guard, "We'll need each envelope unsealed for inspection." The tall prisoner nodded, not quite understanding June's words, understanding her hands. He held out the letter. It bore a red stamp, an angled frame, ink barely dry. A man from the back called out, They killed my son." The room froze. The man's jaw worked once, twice. Eli turned. "I'm sorry for your loss." "You're sorry," the man said. "They should be chained. They should be silent. Today," Eli said, "they're watched, and they're allowed to send mail." "To who?" the man snapped. "To celebrate what they did." June's voice stayed small. "To tell someone they're alive." "Alive," he spat. "My boy isn't." The guard glanced at Eli. Eli stepped closer to the counter. "We'll keep the rules we swore to keep." "Rules failed my son," the man said. "Sir Eli said grief can make rules bleed. It shouldn't make them vanish." The Red Cross clerk slid a stack of forms forward. "Name, camp, return path. Keep it neat." The tall prisoner touched his breast pocket, then gently laid the letter flat. The censor stamp glowed dull under the lamp. June angled it so the postmaster could see the mark without seeing the words. Tommy stood on his toes. "Does the stamp mean it's safe?" "It means June said someone checked it first. Checked for what Tommy asked." "For trouble," June said. "For Harmon Inc." The man who had spoken pressed forward again. "What if he writes home and laughs at us?" "He won't," Eli said. "You don't know that," the man said. "I know what we do." Eli said, "We do this right. We are measured by how we treat the watched," whispered Reverend Whitaker. Behind him, his hands folded over a worn hat. The line heard him. The line shifted. The postmaster finally peered over his glasses. "Folks, let's keep quiet. Letters are more honest in quiet." "Honest," the man said. "Honest to someone," the postmaster replied. "We touch them. We stamp them. We send them. That's the job." The guard gently pushed the prisoner's envelopes forward one by one. Each bore the faint red rectangle. Each had edges softened by thumb and hope. June moved with the economy of someone who respects paper. The soft scrape of envelopes against the blotter felt like mercy you could hear. "Do we need postage?" the guard asked. "Covered," the postmaster said, tapping a ledger. "Then what's to stop them writing?" "Hate," came a voice near the window. June looked up. "Ink can't cross an ocean faster than grief, but it can cross." Eli nodded. "So we watch the ink, and we let it cross." The man with the dead son stood his ground. "I don't want his words in my town." "Words leave towns," Reverend Whitaker said. "That's their nature." "Not these words," the man said. "They are leaving anyway," the Reverend answered, "one way or another." The stove sighed. The clock ticked. Outside, a team rattled by with a load of cordwood bells on the harness, breathing a thin winter sound. Tommy stared at the letters like they were small boats. "Mr. Eli," he whispered, "what do you think he wrote?" "Probably what men write," Eli said. "A name, a promise, a place he misses." Promise of what Tommy asked. "Of getting through," Eli said. "Of coming back different from the worst." The man shook his head. "They don't promise us anything." "No," Eli said. "We promise ourselves something. That's why we stand here." June turned the tall prisoner's envelope to check the flap. The stamp sat there like a quiet warning and a quiet assurance both. She saw a line of tidy script, nothing treasonous, nothing fierce. Just a name, a village, a mother somewhere who must count mornings louder than clocks. "You understand this is opened before it travels," June told the prisoner. She gestured, palm up. "It is law." He nodded more with the muscles of his neck than with his head. "Law," the grieving man said bitterly. "Law for them. None for my son." June looked at him without flinching. "The law is the only thing I have to hand you, sir. It's small. It's steady." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His fingers worked the brim of his hat. Tommy edged closer to June. "Miss June, do you keep copies of letters?" "We keep records," she said. "Not the breathing parts." "What's the breathing part?" he asked. "The part that makes you wait by the window," June said. The line moved. The Red Cross clerk stacked the processed mail, binding it with string that squeaked against paper like a violin practicing scales. The guards relaxed a fraction. The room's shoulders dropped 1 inch. The man tried once more. "If they write, I want to answer." "Then write," Reverend Whitaker said softly. "Write to your boy. Write to the part of him that lived in you." "I can't," the man said. "You can," the Reverend said. "It may not cross the ocean. It will cross the winter." "Winter's too long," the man whispered. June slid the tall prisoner's letter into the stack, neat as stitching. The sensor stamp caught the light again the way snow sometimes takes on a color it doesn't own. Eli signed the guard sheet with a slow hand. "That's done," he said. "Done," the man repeated. "For today," Eli said. "We do today right. Then we do tomorrow." The postmaster closed the ledger. "All set," he said, like a benediction nobody asked for. Tommy touched the brass rail, his fingers leaving a fog print. "Miss June," he said, "where do letters really belong?" June lifted her eyes to the room, the stove, the line, the grief, the duty, the steady hands. Her gaze drifted to the notice board where the town posted bake sales and hymn sings and library hours written in chalk that smudged under mittens. She nodded once as if answering someone far away. Then she said it the way you say a truth you can finally carry. "The letter belongs here." The wind carried a faint whistle across the open fields, rattling the bare branches of hedgerows. Shovels struck soil with hollow clinks, the sound of men ordered to dig without chains. Their breath rose in ragged clouds. The guards stood at the edges, rifles slung low, glancing toward Eli Mercer for signals more than orders. Martha Klein walked up the ridge in her work boots, apron still dusted with flour, her arms folded tight. "I won't have it," she said loud enough for the field to stop. "Chains or I leave." The shovel handles stilled. The prisoners straightened eyes down. A bell rang from town thin midday too far to soften the words. "Easy now," Martha Eli said, stepping between her and the line. His tone wrapped calm over the cold. "You've come in storm." "Storm," she snapped. "My boy wore chains till the end. Why do theirs rest in pockets?" "They're under guard," Eli said. "Watched every breath." "Watched isn't bound," Martha said. "I won't see free hands on this ground." "They're working," Eli said. "Work binds different. They killed my kin," Martha said. "And you let them sow." "They're sowing nothing," Eli said. "Just moving earth." One of the guards shifted his boots. "Mr. Mercer, hold," Eli told him. "This isn't yours to settle." Martha's face flushed with winter and fury. "Chains, Eli, or I'm gone." Eli lifted his hand. "Martha, grief speaks. Let it finish, then let us speak." She shook her head. "No more talk. I want iron." A hymn rose quiet at first. Reverend Whitaker had arrived, his baritone worn but steady. "Be still, my soul." His voice drifted across the wind. One prisoner, the tall one with the letter, touched his pocket as if measuring the sound against paper. The work line shifted uncertain, but then shovels bit soil again. The hymn steadied their rhythm. Martha's breath broke once. She looked at Whitaker, then at Eli. "You'll answer for this." "I will," Eli said. "I'll answer for us all." She turned as if to march off, but her feet slowed at the edge of the furrow. The hymn carried her unwilling and unwilling to leave. She stood half-turned, arms folded tighter. "Chains or I leave," she repeated, weaker now. Martha Eli said, "Chains won't heal what you carry. Dignity might. Let them finish the row." Her eyes shone wet and raw. "You ask too much." "I ask the same of all," Eli said. "Work under watch, breath under sky. That's our line." She trembled, then stayed. The hymn widened voices, low-guard reverend, even Tommy and his boy's treble. The prisoners dug on silent, but ordered, bound by song, more than iron. When the hymn settled into wind and the bell tolled once more, Reverend Whitaker closed his hymn book and spoke, the sound carrying down the furrows like another kind of shovel. "The truth waits inside that letter." The church hall smelled of old wood and lamp oil. Winter coats hung heavy on pegs near the door, still breathing the snow they carried in. The crowd filled the rows, farmers, clerks, widows, boys home on leave. Every pew leaned forward. The choir loft above sat silent now, its echoes waiting. At the center stood Eli Mercer, tall, steady, his hand resting on a folded sheet of paper. The letter. He had carried it carefully since the fields, since the post office's quiet exchanges. Tonight he could feel every eye fixed on it, every breath held back from the moment they learned what he had. "Why gather us?" someone called from the back. "We already know what they are." "You'll hear," Eli said, voice measured, radio deep. "You'll hear from the words themselves, words a farmer snapped. Chain them, not read them." From the side pew, Martha Klein rose. "I lost my boy to their bullets. Why are they unbound here?" The words struck like stones in a pond, rings of anger widening. Chain them or explain why. Another voice thundered. If you won't chain them, Eli will have you removed from this post. The hall shook with murmurs of assent. Eli lifted the letter. The lamplight caught the Red Cross stamp, the censor's mark, the crease worn by hands that feared losing it. He did not shout for quiet. He simply stood, and the stillness spread until the scrape of a boot heel sounded too loud. This letter, Eli began, was written by one of the men walking our streets. You've seen him guard it as if it held breath itself. Tonight we'll see why. He unfolded the paper. The crowd leaned. Lamplight spilled across ink strokes that were careful spare, translated once already, but holding something older than words. My dearest mother, Eli read slow and low, I am alive. The land is far, the work is hard, the sky is the same. Each morning I remember your hymn, and each night I pray I may see our village again. The hall hushed further. No coughs, no shuffles, just the sound of Eli's voice carrying syllables across beams and stone. I cannot speak of the days behind us, but I tell you this, I am still your son. They watch me always. Some treat me harsh, some treat me fair. I do not know when I return. I do not know if I return. But I carry your hymn in my chest, that no one can chain. Martha's lips parted, but no words came. Reverend Whitaker closed his eyes, mouthing silent harmony. The farmer from the pie case clenched his fist. It's a trick. Ink lies. Does grief lie less? Eli asked quietly. Do our own letters lie? They killed our kin, the man said, and now we sit and weep for theirs. No, Eli said. We sit and weigh what kind of people we are. The choir loft creaked as if someone had shifted weight above, though no one was there. Lamplight swung gently in the draft, gilding the edges of the page. Eli read on. I dream of bread from your oven. I dream of the orchard in spring. I dream of my father's hands on the plow. Tell him I remember. Tell him I did not forget. The letter shook in Eli's hand, not from weakness, but from the gravity of holding another man's home in a town that doubted his right to words. Chain them, or explain why. The shout rose again stronger. The crowd surged with the sound of benches groaning. Eli lifted his hand. This is why. A man remembers his orchard. A son remembers his mother. No chain can hold that, and no chain makes us stronger. Strong is justice, Martha said, voice breaking. Justice is not iron, Eli answered. Justice is choosing steady when anger burns. Reverend Whitaker's baritone rose without his meaning to sing a single hymn line, Be still my soul. The notes settled into rafters, into shoulders, into the place where grief meets silence. Tommy Lee leaned toward June. Is it true, Miss June? Do hymns cross oceans? They do, June whispered. On voices, on paper. Eli read the last line. If I do not return, remember me not as enemy, but as son of another mother praying the same prayers you pray. The words hung. The lamp flame quivered. The choir loft seemed to breathe. The farmer's voice faltered. My boy never had a chance to write that. I know, Eli said, and because he didn't, we owe it to him to hear when another boy does. You call him boy, the man spat. I call him son, Eli said, because that is what the letter calls him. Martha gripped the pew so hard her knuckles whitened, then proved they deserved no chains. The hall exhaled all at once, as if everyone had been holding the same lungful of air. The letter trembled in Eli's hand. The lamplight swung wider, and the crowd waited, pulled to the edge of something they had not agreed to but could not turn from. The town square glowed with lamplight halos of breath rising into the December air. Snow pressed down on roofs, soft but unyielding, muffling the shuffle of boots as the crowd gathered around the post at the center. A hymn floated from the church steps, not loud, just a handful of voices caroling against the cold. Their notes threaded through the hush, more binding than chains. Eli Mercer stood by the lamppost, the letter pinned there with care, fluttering in the winter draft. The Red Cross stamp glowed dull under the lamp's circle. The crowd pressed in, faces hard faces, uncertain. The anger of last night lingered, but so did the quiet echo of words read aloud. They killed our sons, the farmer said, breath clouding. Why do we stand here pretending they're the same as us? Not the same, Eli said. His voice carried steady. But still men, still sons, Men who took what mattered most. Martha said, her scarf pulled tight. What dignity is left to us? Eli laid his hand against the lamppost. A small stone rolled to his boots. Eli did not step back. His hand pressed the paper firm against the post. The crowd held its breath, then slowly released it. Dignity holds stronger than iron. That's what we carry. Not chains. You speak soft, another man said, but grief shouts louder. Grief shouts, Eli agreed. But justice listens. The hymn swelled a little, the choir's notes trembling in the air. Tommy Lee stood by June, eyes wide. They're singing the same hymn from the letter, he whispered. June nodded. Echo carries farther than we think. Martha stepped forward, eyes fixed on the letter. That scrap of paper isn't my boy. My boy can't write again. No, Eli said, but it speaks of another mother's boy. And when we honor that, we honor yours too. The farmer shook his head. I can't forgive. No one asks you to, Eli said. We ask you to stand steady, to keep the roof on this house. A silence spread. The hymn faltered, then caught again. Martha's voice cut through, raw but steady. I was wrong. The pie case man stepped forward, set a nickel in the tip jar, and gave Eli a slow nod. We'll keep mannerly. The words dropped like stones into water, sending ripples through the gathered. Heads turned. No one moved. You were grieving, Eli said gently, and still are. I thought chains were strength, Martha said, her voice shaking. But they are weakness. Dignity is harder. The crowd shifted. Someone bowed his head. Someone else placed a hand on his neighbor's shoulder. The lamppost creaked in the cold. Reverend Whitaker raised his hat. Community is judged in its echoes, he said. We echo mercy or we echo rage. Mercy, June said, soft but clear. Let's choose mercy. The choir picked up the carol again, stronger now, weaving through the lamplight and the snow. The Red Cross stamp caught the glow as if lit from within. Tommy edged closer, looking at the letter, then at the circle of faces around him. His breath fogged and cleared. Then the letter belongs to us all. The library foyer smelled faintly of polished wood and winter coats drying by the radiator. Lamplight washed across the marble floor, catching on the glass case newly fixed against the wall. Inside the letter lay unfolded the Red Cross stamp, pressed clear in its corner, the words steady in their faded ink. Below it, a brass plate carried a simple line, December 24th, 1943. Dignity holds stronger than iron. Families filled the space, their voices hushed, like a Sunday service. Children fidgeted on the edges, peering up at the case. Choir bells from the church drifted faintly through the cold night outside. Eli Mercer stood back, his hands folded loosely. He had carried the letter through storm and outrage, but tonight he let it belong to the town. Tommy stepped forward, his small voice breaking the hush. Can I read it? Reverend Whitaker nodded. Go on, son. Read it for us. Tommy leaned close to the plaque, tracing each word. We are treated more like workers than prisoners. We walk without chains. We are seen as men. A murmur moved through the crowd. June dabbed her eyes with her glove. It don't sound like enemies wrote it, a man whispered. No, Martha answered, her voice gentler now. It sounds like neighbors will never meet. The projector in the adjoining hall began its slow whir, reels turning for a newsreel. The sound blended with Tommy's reading, two echoes of history overlapping. Eli shifted, the porch swing creak in his memory as strong as the present moment. He thought of nights spent explaining, defending, waiting for others to see what he had seen. Now the letter itself did the work. Why frame it here? Someone asked softly. Reverend Whitaker answered, Because a library keeps what a town must not forget. Tommy finished the line, his breath fogging the glass. He looked back at Eli. Does this mean they'll always remember? Eli's smile was small, lined with years. It means they have the chance. Behind them, the carolers' voices swelled again, carried on cold air through the foyer doors. Dishes clattered faintly from homes down the street, Sunday dinners winding into night. The town moved on, but the letter stayed. Martha stepped closer to the case. It belongs to us now, she said, her reflection trembling in the glass, a reminder that chains aren't the only way. The crowd thinned slowly, boots scuffing on marble, voices soft with the weight of the moment. The foyer quieted. Only Eli, Tommy, and the plaque remained. Tommy whispered the inscription once more, careful with each word. December 24th, 1943. Dignity holds stronger than iron. The brass caught the lamplight glowing like a steady ember as the scene faded to stillness. Under the library's warm lamps, the framed Red Cross stamped letter steadied the foyer. Outside, a church bell drifted over Main Street, and farther off, the clatter of Sunday plates settled into quiet as Eli finally stepped back and Tommy read the brass date aloud. What began as a diner's stare and a shouted demand, "Why no chains?" moved through the post office line, the winded rows of the fields, and the church hall where Eli read while the crowd roared, "Chain them," or explain why, until Martha found the only just words left, "I was wrong." Kindness that expects nothing is a lamp in a winter window, plain, small, and guiding, teaching us not to mistake noise for strength nor iron for dignity. So the letter under glass became the town's promise, the choir's echo turning forward into years as men once called enemies walked our street unchained. Men once called enemies walked our street unchained.